Hey, how's everyone doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm just kind of bored in my house. Wife's at school. Or I'm sorry, I was going to say wife's at school, son's at work. Flip that. Wife's at work, son's at school. I'm not deployed right now for work. There's no steel mills or nothing being commissioned. So I just got done running, and I'm still got a little bit of energy before I start like cleaning the house and stuff, and getting really ready for Christmas. So I decided to make a quick little video based on something that was sent to me by an individual. Um, I kind of blotted out the name and all, but y'all are going to figure out who this is. I have an idea. This is just kind of me talking from my experience in the military and also from my experience as somebody that assists veterans. So I get a lot of these. I'll get a lot of people that are asking for help about getting into college or getting a job, and they'll give me these pretty carbon copy resumes like this, and it's all based on this thing called a brag sheet or a dream sheet. When you leave the military, I didn't get to experience this because you got to remember my separation from the military was not very typical. One day I was in Afghanistan. Next thing I knew, I was waking up weeks later in a hospital bed in Germany with an intubation tube down my throat. Um, But my understanding is, when you get close to your separation, you go to like this little class for like a week. There's some lifer there, a guy who's going to do 30 years. He hands you a bunch of pamphlets, and he's supposed to be able to answer your questions about getting out of the military and getting a job. And of course, he's not doing that, so he doesn't really know how to answer any of these questions. So it's of kind of questionable value. But one of the things you do get is a brag sheet slash dream sheet, and it very flowerily, very eloquently, it lists all the great things that you did. And the idea is you're supposed to be able to take this to a university or take this to a company and say, hey, this is the civilian equivalent of training and stuff. Give me all these college credits or hire me for this job. And the reason I call it a dream sheet is you've got to be dreaming to think that this will work. Because they grossly overstate kind of it's not very realistic at all. So this individual wants to attain a position which will allow me to utilize my technical and analytical abilities. Organized and self-motivated with current overseas combat zone experience. Seriously, Jackie, come the frick on. Like, look, I'm not one of those people where I'm like, hey, you're not a real service member. Like you weren't really in the military unless you were getting shot at or unless you got injured. I hate people that do that. I really do. If you ever see this online where somebody's like making that claim, 99.999% of the time, that person either A, the only service they ever did was playing Call of Duty, or two, they were somebody that was in a support role and for whatever reason they're trying to LARP that they were in a combat role. The only reason that I'm here right now talking to you through this video is because of a countless number of support personnel saving my life. I'm not just talking about the doctors and the nurses. I'm talking about the flight people, the pilots, the service mechanic, like the helicopter mechanics, the airplane mechanics, so on, physical therapists, everything. I couldn't possibly, I can't even try to wrap my head around the number of individuals that were required to do their job to get me into Germany and keep me alive while I was in a medically induced coma, let alone all the people that have continued to help me. This is the entire reason why a single U.S. military member has so many force multipliers. And I'm talking about like the ground pounders. Why we have so many force multipliers, why we're so effective, is because of all the support personnel behind us. It's why for every infantryman you got about 100 people behind him doing all the necessary work. But for the love of God, Jackie, you're in the motor pool, man. You're in the motor pool. Come on. Combat zone. Really, you're in the combat zone. Oh, yeah. Computer literate. That's meaningless. What does computer literate mean? Where I digress. Proficient in Spanish and French. Again, what does that mean? Recent security, secret security. Oh, God. I'm going to go off on a rant on that. So work experience. She's working for Lear Siegler Services. This is one of those big, massive, opaque um, companies that does everything under the sun. They basically have slightly better PR than that mercenaries group that keeps having to change its name because they keep getting in trouble with the U.S. government for like raping people and murdering civilians and shit. Um, I don't have a very good opinion of contractors when I was in Afghanistan. I'll be straight up honest with you. I saw electricians that the way of checking if something was live was to touch it. I saw plumbers that could not figure out the difference between raw sewage and potable water. And I saw guys that were supposedly security guys that had combat experience, and they were basically dropouts from boot camp for psychological reasons, and they were given body armor and a gun. I don't have a high opinion of contractors. Um, the money you get from the contract work over in Iraq and Afghanistan was really good, especially compared to the U.S. military, until you really started crunching the numbers. Because when you're in the U.S. military, your food, your health care, your housing, and all of that for your immediate family was all taken care of. Well, now that you're a contractor, that's gone. And now you have to pay for like your transportation and so on. And no, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't worth it. And so they were taking anyone and everybody. And from my experience, the contractors that I knew and had to deal with at all, they were a combination of either being remarkably stupid or really bad with money, running away from a completely screwed up personal life, or just a complete freaking psycho. Now, obviously, that's not the case for everybody, but I'm just saying I just didn't have a good opinion of them. It was so bad that we actually kept a voltage detector. It's like shaped like a pen, or a pen. I mean, like a writing utensil. And I explained to my guys how I wanted them to every time they go to take a shower, grab that thing and touch all the faucets and touch the shower heads and stuff. Because we were having a real problem with military members in Afghanistan being electrocuted to death from their showers and from their sinks. And again, it was because the contractors that they hired were fucking idiots, and they would somehow wire live wiring straight into metal piping. Like I'll be real with you. Like a lot of people imagine that like I was really nervous around Afghan like civilians and stuff. No, I was usually more nervous being around the contractors. You could always tell too. You could get into a vehicle and you could tell right away whether it was serviced by U.S. active duty personnel or if it was serviced by a contractor. Because if it was done by the U.S. military personnel, oh, that baby would purr. And if it was done by the contractor, you're like, shit, we are not going to get a click out of the fob before this breaks down. So she was deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom from 2003 to 2004. That is interesting because I've never heard Jackie mention that she was ever in Afghanistan. Accomplished an extremely high level of brigade readiness as part of a multi-tiered support operation worked on diverse projects such as assisting with the process of inspecting and maintaining 300 foreign weapons seized during raids. And again, most of this is just cut and paste from a brag sheet. It's the same thing, kind of like this. This is this is what I would expect a 91 Bravo to have if they came and sat down. I think it's 91 Bravo. I might be wrong on that MOS. I do remember I made a video where I predicted that, or I said that I believe that Jackie worked in the motor pool, and kudos to me, I was correct. Um, Maintain upwards of 200 tanks and fighting vehicles and over 2,500 assorted weapons at average operational status of 99% over a 4-month period. So I guess Jackie was only deployed for 4 months. That's odd. That is really odd. Um, that is really, really, really odd. Awarded Army Achievement Medal in addition to Iraq Global War on Terrorism and Expeditionary Medals upon the United States Meritorious Services. Oh, my Lord. I cannot tell you all my ribbons and awards after 6 years. I couldn't. I couldn't freaking tell you. I got so damn many of them because the U.S. military is sort of like a African military junta. Like they just hand out awards for everything. Like she's basically saying she got a GWAT and GWAT XP for merit, and it's like no, it's a participation award. Like again, Jackie was never deployed to Afghanistan, so why'd she get a GWAT XP? I don't even actually, to be fair, I don't even know because I know one of them, GWAT was supposed to be for like Iraq. I thought a GWAT XP was for Afghanistan. But the operational theaters are so goddamn massive that everyone just gets them. Like I got both of them for just. It's like, there are guys that are on like aircraft carriers in the middle of the Persian Gulf that got them, and it's like, what are they afraid of? Hitting their own boats, like hitting their own cruiser, kind of things. Like it's goofy. And the same thing. It's like Army Achievement Medal. Again, I'm fairly certain that's like for not going to an Article 15 probably in the 2 year period. Like it's these are things that you just pick up just literally having a pulse in the military. None of these are individual awards. Maybe the Army Achievement Medal, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look that up. Perform direct, general, and depot level maintenance repair on mechanisms, weapons of tanks, fighting vehicles, artillery weapons, and small arms. I will say this. This is where I get a little frustrated about the people that try to, like the people like, if you weren't on the front lines, you're not really in the military. And it's always like somebody that worked a supply job or a support job, I should say. I don't know why they don't take pride in it because if you want to know why the U.S. was able to occupy and maintain an occupying force for 20 years in Afghanistan, whereas Russia in like 3 years has gone like 40 clicks, and it's right on their border, it's because the Russians can't do supply. They just can't. They're horrible at it. And you'll see them, they're abandoning tanks that you're like, they're just abandoning tanks that are perfectly fine, but there's no point in them dragging them back because they don't have the trained, qualified people to rebuild those tanks. I remember us pulling back MRAPs that like had half the wheels left on them, and those wheels were flattened, and it looks like the entire frame is like bent and everything. Like it looks completely shit. And like my guys are bitching and moaning about the fact we're pulling this back. I said we're pulling it back because in a week we're gonna get it back. And half the time that'd be true. It was amazing what our people could do. It was absolutely amazing. Like you had to basically, it was unreal how much damage a piece of motorized equipment had to have before we would just abandon it in the field. And then we would sabotage it further, kind of thing. But it was just like the work that these mechanics and stuff that would do, like in the motor pulls and stuff, was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. They should take a lot of pride in it. They shouldn't LARP that they were front line. Performed ordnance armament maintenance and repair, maintained and repaired mechanical and hydraulic turret mechanisms. Again, this is all from an MRAP. Skills. Both of these dots are pointless, and like this is essentially the advice that I would give any individual sitting down in front of me with this resume, and it's like none of this is certified. Like you're putting down, like what you're basically saying there is I can write an email and I can do basic data entry because you don't have any certs, no certifications or anything, and nowadays. That's what employers expect. The same kind of thing with the language. You can't just say that you're trilingual, bilingual, whatever, because way too many employers have been bitten in the past by somebody that claimed that they were like this multilingual polyglot. And then it turns out that the person doesn't know anything. Like this is why they have class levels of language proficiency. So like while I can fluently speak Spanish, I don't put that on a resume. I would never put that on a resume because one of the employers would possibly start trying, like if I was doing an interview, they might try to start speaking to me in fluent Spanish, but they might be speaking Spanish that's like more Filipino than my Spanish, which is more Chicano, and this just looks bad. I would basically tell someone like, unless you're really confident in this, what I would, especially for the computer stuff, I would say like, look, what I would recommend you do, you go to a community college and you try to get some certs that you can actually do this stuff. Because right now, this is just like you're basically promising that you can do this. Anyone out there that is coming out of the military, do not tell people that you have a secret security clearance. It's pointless. It's effing pointless. Everybody in the military now gets a secret security clearance. Everybody does. The only reason that Jackie had a secret security clearance was because the military, for reasons that I cannot fathom, have now decided to make like maintenance manuals secret. It's really stupid. This results in everyone having to get a secret security clearance, which costs a lot of money. And then they had to develop a zipper net so that they could actually transfer information, like updates to a simple service manual. And this now means that everyone has to have access to the zipper net, which is why you keep having shit like Chelsea Manning doing a data dump, because they have access to way more shit than they ever needed to do. But it's because everyone has to dedicate everything or classify everything as secret now. It's just dumb. But what it's really dumb about putting it onto your resume is this is not an active secret security clearance. So it's pointless. If somebody wanted to hire you, and it's a job that requires a secret security clearance, they're going to have to go back and redo the entire process again. They're just going to have to, because it's inactive. And even if it was active, but it's inactive, you can't get out of the military with an active security clearance. Even if it was active, if you went to a different, like let's say instead I was in the Air Force and I had a secret security clearance and I went to the Navy to work in a shipyard for a naval contractor, that required a secret security clearance. The Navy would not accept a secret security clearance from the Air Force. They don't talk. It's branch rivalry kind of thing. They have to do their own background. What's really fun is you can run into a situation like this, where let's say you're in the Army, you're in the Green Berets, you had a top secret security clearance, you try to work at that shipyard. Well, you need a secret security clearance, so they need to downgrade your security clearance. But the person that handles that for the shipyard only has a secret security clearance, so they can't downgrade they'll ask you, like, so what'd you do for these last 8 years? I can't tell you. I've been debriefed. I'm not allowed to talk about anything I used to do. Okay, well, we have an 8-year period that you won't talk to us about. We can't go into it. The Army won't talk to us, so we can't give you a security clearance. This happens to people all the time. So just generally speaking, there's no point in putting your clearance on there. Like, unless it's like top secret and you're directly applying for a job that requires a top secret, and you're saying, look, I had this once before, so there's a very good chance that I'll be able to get this. But secret is so damn easy to get, you don't even have to be a U.S. citizen to get it. Because if that was a requirement, well, half the guys in my unit wouldn't have been allowed to serve. So this is what's kind of interesting to me. I do know exactly where APG is because I'm originally from Maryland. So she was in from June, July, August, September, October, November, and then or I should have started April. April, May, June, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So that's 8 months. And then on top of this, she did 4 months apparently in country, and then no more. And she also doesn't include her discharge. So the nature of whether it was an honorable discharge or not. If you got an honorable discharge, you always put an honorable discharge. Always put an honorable discharge. I always advise people put an honorable discharge or a general under honorable condition. You always put that. Anything lower than that, don't include your discharge. That's what you're told. And that's the damn truth. Based on the really short period of time, because she says she was only active for 2 years, Army doesn't do a 2 and 6 year enlistment. Real quick, everybody that enlists in the military got to do 8 years. The shortest I know of with the Army is 3 and 5. She didn't do 3 and 5. She says she did 2 and 6. That's too short. That's way, way, way too short. So I'm thinking that she got into some kind of legal issue and she got separated. Maybe she got an other than honorable. Maybe she got a general, but she did something to get kicked out. Now, I know there's probably somebody out there that says, well, what if she got pregnant? You don't get kicked out for getting pregnant. You just don't. The military is already paying for your health care, your medical care, and so on. It's not a big deal for them also to pay for your child care, your child's food, your child's housing, and your daycare. It's just not. What ends up happening when an active duty member who's deployed gets pregnant, they basically temporarily assign that person to a U.S. Stateside command where they stay until they have the kid, and they stay there for, I want to say, up to a year, maybe 2 years. It basically gets women out of deployments. Now, you might be saying, well, that's a pretty shitty deal, like for the guys, like that doesn't seem fair. A lot of guys have problems with this, and the way I would always explain it to my personnel, my guys, is, well, look, their careers are dead. Like, if you start pumping out kids, you will not advance. You will not advance because you're not getting service awards. You're not getting collateral duties. You're not even going to get you're not going to get outstanding evals and stuff. Because when I'm an NCO, I had a limited number of like outstanding evals to give and so on. I couldn't just give everyone an outstanding. I had a very small number. I would never dream of wasting one of those on somebody that's temporarily assigned to me because they're going to leave. So there's no point in trying to help their career out. I'm not worried about them. Like, I'm not trying to keep them to stay with us or stay in the military. They're just going to get out. So like for these women that do this, I'm not saying do this like as like they're doing it intentionally, but for a woman that gets pregnant, it really derails their career. It really, really derails their career for a number of years. So the idea that like women are just getting pregnant to get out of deployments, are there some women that do that? Yeah. There's also some dumbass guys that'll marry a stripper just to get the BAH because the basic housing allowance because they think that that's a good deal, and then they realize that they've opened themselves up to a nightmarish existence where they lost money in the exchange. Now, one of the reasons there's another reason why I think that Jackie got a negative discharge besides her short period of time on active duty and her lack of putting honorable discharge in her resume, and that is she's never used the GI Bill. And the GI Bill right now is phenomenal. It's way better. It's way better than it used to be. You used to get the same amount of money if you went to Harvard or if you went to a community college. Now you get basic allowance for housing with E5 at the E5 rank with dependents. Whether you're married or not, and whatever rank you were when you were discharged, while you're on the GI Bill, you get that money. This is huge. This, like, if you're smart, you get paid to go to school, and you could still get a decent degree from a decent university. I got paid to get a 4-year mechanical engineering degree from an ABET certified university because I went to a public school in my home state. Like, I was making money every month. I did not have to get a job. I didn't have to get a job. Under the old system, I would have absolutely had to try to get a job, and I would have had to, it would have been very, very difficult for me to get my engineering degree. It wouldn't have been as easy as it was with the GI Bill, as it is now. Now, my understanding is that Jackie has only ever done like a half a semester of film school before she dropped out. And I think that is she's probably one of those individuals that probably got like a general discharge. Or maybe she got a general under honorable conditions, and as part of her discharge, her GI Bill benefits were taken away from her. Because that's one of the first things you lose when you don't finish your contract. You lose the GI Bill, which is really kind of shitty, because we actually pay for the GI Bill. The money comes out of our paycheck, I want to say it's our first year in the military, and it kind of goes into a fund. Well, if you don't use it for any reason, you don't get that money back. And if you lose access to it, you don't get that money back either. So I have a feeling that whatever Jackie's discharge was compromised her ability to use the GI Bill. And either she didn't realize it, or maybe she hoped that she could kind of sneak in there by following the paperwork. And then, because what ends up happening is you have to start school. And then you submit your paperwork, you start school, so you have to have a little bit of money actually saved up, so you can actually pay for books and do all this stuff. And then you start getting, it's not even reimbursed because you're going to get more money than what you actually paid off initially. And then the big thing is you have to be passing your classes and stuff. Otherwise, the GI Bill will be like, hey, we want that money back. You flunked your classes. Like, we're not paying for this kind of thing. Well, I just get the feeling that like Jackie just she doesn't have access to the GI Bill. The other thing is, and I really hope this isn't the case for her. I have seen this happen way too many times where somebody gets like a discharge rating and they think that their GI Bill has they don't have their GI Bill and they don't realize that they actually still do, but they waited too long to use the GI Bill because I want to say it's 10 years after you get separated. So either way, even if she was still supposed to have the GI Bill, it's too late, which is, this is going to sound harsh when I say this. I kind of hope she lost it as opposed to that she just didn't use it. Um, because that's just kind of shitty. Because again, she paid for it, like she put in the money. So this kind of answered some questions, and it didn't answer other ones. I fully admit I was right on her being a motor pool mechanic. I was completely wrong about her doing 8 years. I thought for sure she did 8 years, and then at the 8 year point she tried to reenlist, but her debt load didn't let her reenlist. In this case, it kind of looks to me like she got forced out at 2 years for something. And at 2 years, that's not a good sign. And again, it's not because she got pregnant. Anyone thinks, oh yeah, it's because she got pregnant. If the U.S. military did that, then the U.S. military wouldn't allow women in. They just wouldn't. They would lose money on women every time they enlisted a woman. They would lose money. So anyway, I hope everybody is having happy holidays. It is 10 days away, so I'm looking forward to this. Y'all take care. Ciao.